Hello there, it's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and you are always the one to make the program what it turns out to be, and quite frankly, it is always remarkable, the insights and life experiences and comments and takes that you share. So I'm going to give you the phone number, and then we will be off and running with today's conversation. 1-800-585-9396, 1-800-585-9396. Now, we were going to do this show yesterday, and there was some weather in Birmingham, and so the network took some precautions, and we aired a previously aired show.
Which was very good, by the way.
I was going to say, Debbie, we got a lot of emails from that show, and it aired some months ago. So anyway, we're back live again today, and we're going to do the topic today that was scheduled for yesterday, and I think it's going to be fun, Debbie.
Oh, I'm very excited about it. In fact, I told some of my friends about it, and they can't wait to watch it and just reminisce, like you said, Jerry. But before we go to that, I just wanted to say we had that recorded show yesterday. It was on forgiveness, and we first announced our Stand Tall retreat, and that was way back several months ago. We actually had some signups on the retreat, which is really great, and which leads me to say that we only have 2 weeks left, and we're closing registration. So if you want to get in on the Stand Tall retreat, please go to jerryanddebbie.com, check out the agenda, and you can sign up for the retreat. Jerry, we're getting signups pretty much almost every day now. So I think we're going to have a very nice size, a bus load, if you will, and it'll be fantastic to take the field trip to Mother Angelica's resting place, to be at the monastery, to be at the abbey, to go through, walk through the grotto, and just to be with one another and to stand tall in a very confident way. And that's how we're going to leave the weekend, February 9th through the 11th. So please join us, jerryanddebbie.com. So yeah, Jerry, we can start with today. I just wanted to say that because we had signups from yesterday's show, which is really kind of interesting because it was recorded several months ago.
Well, fantastic. And the topic, the discussion for today was one that I chose. Debbie and I, we have a Google document that we and the show team populate with topics and details about the show and all. So I put this one on there. I don't know, what came over me, what struck me to have this conversation, this topic, Debbie, but I guess I was just reminiscing about the old days in high school, and I got to thinking, in the high school where I went, there were all kinds of cliques and classes. And by classes, obviously they're academic classes. But I'm talking about classes of students, the cliques that the different students kind of found themselves falling into. And I'd like to know from our listeners if that was your experience. All right, so it's 1-800-585-9396. We're talking about jocks, nerds. I know in my school there were the ones we called stoners. They'd go out between classes and get high. There were teachers' pets, bullies, rockers. So, dear friends, what was your experience like? Was your high school kind of divided up into these different groups? And did you find yourself identifying with any of them?
Yeah. Well, you had said high school classes, not meaning academic classes, but different classes of groups. But, we used to call them cliques, and there was all different names for them, like you said. And then there was additional names that was added as time goes on. Like you could have the people that were into goth, dressing in all the black. And like you said, the stoners and the jocks and the nerds and the floaters and the skaters and the preppies and, it goes on and on. But Jerry, better than anybody how much I cannot stand labels. Can't stand them. I don't know why. It just makes me feel like it's boxed in. It doesn't allow a person to grow. You're always going to remember that. If you go back to reunions 10 years, 20 years later, you go, oh, you were that nerdy kid in high school. That's why I really avoided labels. So I think you can kind of guess which group I fell into. I was in the floating category. I used to float between different groups. I never identified with a single group. At least I don't think I did it. Maybe have some of them. I told some of my friends from high school that we're going to be doing the show today, so maybe you can call in and tell me if I was part of a group that I didn't know of, but I just didn't want to belong to any. How about you, Jerry? Were you obviously you were part of the sports group, correct?
Oh yeah, I was definitely belonged to the jocks, and among the others, I don't know. I just
were
remember
you smart?
I did okay. I
Yeah.
think I did pretty well, grade wise and all that. It wasn't my my
Strong
priority.
suit. Oh, right, right.
But yeah, I did well. But no, I just remember, like, here's an example. In our school, there was kind of like these unwritten rules. The seniors had certain privileges. Like, for example, outside of the school office, a bunch of students would congregate in between classes, and it was always the seniors. The seniors
Right.
had, nobody else could kind of crack that space, that group. And on the bus, the school bus, the activity buses, the athletic buses, the back seats, were always, nobody sat there unless it was, and I was one of them. I sat in, the kind of the priority seating and stuff. So anyway,
The back of the bus was priority seating.
yeah. You
I
just
didn't
want to
know
get
that.
back there so you can kind of goof off
goof
and
around.
stuff like
Okay,
that.
got
Yeah,
it.
but so anyway, we're wanting to know from you, our listeners. Did you have this kind of environment in your school? What do you think about it now? I mean, Debbie, when I was going through it, it just seemed so naturally a part of high school that the different students would kind of, like you said,
Identify with the
gravitate,
group.
identify
Yeah.
with certain groups or be identified. See, that's another thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we would, like you say, Debbie, we would in our minds kind of categorize people into certain cliques or classes, and so I'd love to hear from our listeners,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe how your thinking has changed on that a little bit. I look back now, Debbie, and I think, oh my gosh, did we really behave like that?
Yeah. Don't you think it's kind of oppressive though? I don't know. When you just, I don't know, when you look back at it now, I mean, why can't just all of them just accept, each other for their strengths and their gifts and their talents? But I guess it doesn't work like that. Now, did you go to public school? Because I went to public high school.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went to
Okay.
public
I went
high
to,
school, yeah.
I went to Catholic elementary school. Did you go to Catholic or public elementary school?
Well, I went to Catholic school for about half of first grade, but it was about 30 miles away, and had a single mom with 5 kids, and I could literally look out my bedroom window and see the public school almost across the street. So,
Okay.
One day on an icy morning, we slid off into the ditch, and Mom said, "That's it. You guys are going to public school." So I literally
Gotcha.
could walk to school in 60 seconds.
Okay, yeah. Well, and Jerry, it was interesting. When Marty was leaving for work this morning, I said to him, "So by the way," I said, "we're doing this show today on high school cliques." I said, "I guess I probably can guess what group you were in, right? You were in the jock group, right? Because he played basketball and just loved it." He goes, "Debbie, not only was I in the jock group, I used to walk around dribbling my basketball between classes, and then I would carry my basketball into class." I said, "Oh, you were like Castaway with Wilson." And he goes, "That's right." He goes, "My basketball was my best friend."
Yeah.
Isn't that sad?
No, I remember that. I remember football players, quarterbacks would carry, football around and kind of just toss it up in the air and spin it around and just be, I don't know. Sometimes they say that, just having that, the feel of it, you just get a little bit more accustomed to handling the ball or something. But
Interesting.
anyway, folks, we got lines open here. We're talking about our high school days. Reminisce with us. Come on, 1-800-585-9396. Now, surely you went to high school. And surely you can identify with what we're talking about. Maybe it's not, don't make the call about yourself, but just in general, what was this high school environment like for you? And now as you look back, however many years later, has your thinking about it changed at all? 1-800-585-9396.
I remember when I went to my 10-year reunion, Jerry, and it's unfortunate, but with these labels, if you will, of groups of categories of kids in high school, you just remember it, 10 years, 20 years later. And I remember going to the reunion and seeing some kids that technically were in the, bookworm group, nerdy group, and they turned out to be like super cool and super successful. And everybody was saying at the reunion, boy, if we knew they were going to turn out like that, we would have treated them a lot better in high school. And, it sounds funny, but it really isn't, because I really don't like the labels. I just don't. I don't know where I developed this, but maybe it's just because growing up, I looked back and I saw so many people try to break out of those titles that were given to them, and they never could. And so they got really down on themselves because they couldn't break out of it. And so maybe that's where it comes from with me, but I would love to hear what our listeners have to say about this. So you obviously went to high school. You must have experienced this. Maybe you went to your reunion and you experienced what we experienced, where you saw the people and you went, wow, they've changed completely. So dial in in. We want to hear from you. 1-800-585-9396. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. You're the most important person in this wonderful show. So join us, won't you? We'll be right back.
Al Cresta.
The secular press just doesn't get our story. They don't even understand it. And so it's incumbent upon us to get the story straight and get the story out.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Father Robert Spitzer.
First of all, you will get a much deeper awareness of your faith, much deeper awareness of the evidence for your faith, explanations of tough theological issues, how science and reason and faith come together, and above all, a deeper awareness of how to practice your faith and how to live it.
Father Spitzer's Universe with Father Robert Spitzer. Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Stay up to date on the latest EWTN TV and radio shows, books, art, CDs, and DVDs from Religious Catalog when you sign up for Wings, our weekly e-newsletter. Get Wings today at EWTN.com.
Christ is the Answer with Father John Riccardo.
In the midst of our culture today, in this age of relativism, which wants to grant Jesus some significance, but not so much, so we'll give him wise man, great leader, inspiring preacher, great teacher, prophet. You don't get that option when you claim to be God. What reasons do we have to believe that he is who he said he is? And it's important, again, to employ the use of our reason and to understand that faith is not blind. My faith, and please God, the faith of everyone here, is not blind. It rests on something. It rests on a number of things, not least of which is my own experience of God, but it also has something substantial which can be claimed through history. We're not talking about a galaxy long, long ago, far, far away when we talk about Jesus. We're talking about a precise moment in history which has been testified to by countless testimonies, and you and I have access to them.
Glad you're with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Thanks to the show team. Thanks to our affiliates for airing the show. I was going to say carrying, and then I switched to airing, and then I just put out there airing. So a hybrid word. And thanks to you, our listeners. We're talking today about our high school days and how just want to know if your experience was similar to mine and Debbie's about, how there were just these different groups and cliques and, different labels and identifiers for the different students and so forth. 1-800-585-9396. Go ahead, Deb.
Jerry, I got a question for you. We always weave our topics into our faith. So how is this topic related to our faith walk?
Well, one of the things that struck me, and I remember, Debbie, when I was in high school, I definitely identified with certain groups, and I probably was involved in the, there are always the students who are vulnerable and get belittled a lot, and are kind of made fun of and stuff, and I'm sure I did my share of that, and so this, I think, is part of it, and I just got to thinking about this show, and how this can be unfair a lot of times, and we mistreat people, I think, and like you said, the labels and all of that, so I think it touches upon our faith in a very profound way, and that is the dignity of each person, and just making sure that we're all treating each other with great dignity and compassion
and respect. Yeah,
respect. That's the word I was looking for.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. See, I knew we could weave it into our spirituality. Okay, so first up, who got our First Up award is Jean from Cleveland, Ohio, listening on The Rock. Hi, Jean. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, Jean. How are you?
Pretty good. Thank you both for taking my call. I enjoy your show.
Thank you.
I have I have like a dual perspective. When I went to high school, I went to a Catholic all-girls high school in the late 60s, early 70s, which was that was the right before Vietnam War, right at the beginning of that. And the cliques, as far as groups, they weren't so clearly defined. The biggest distinction in our school were those kids who were college-bound and those who were not. they had, they called them racks or greasers, and these were like girls who ratted their hair and had them straight up, black hair, dark, or the girls that wore their skirts really short, and you had to kneel down if your skirt didn't touch the floor, or if your hair was too high, you had to go under the sink and they washed your hair, that kind of thing. But we had our music kids, and the kids that were in band and orchestra, and then we had the kids that were in the sports program. But there wasn't any. I'm not aware of any mistreatment, but there was a clear distinction between those, like I said, that were not going to college. And then that was the beginning of what they now call career tech. We call them vocational schools then. So the kids that were in the vocational schools at that time were considered less intelligent. They had to do something like that. They had to get a skill because they couldn't make it in college, which as an educator, I know is totally, totally false. The other perspective, though, that I give is now, 30-something years or 40-something years later, I'm an administrator in a high school, and now in a public high school, and the difference there is quite different. I mean, there really are very, very strong lines. You have they call them posers, the kids that are that wear the chains and that kind of thing, the kids that put rings in their ears and their nose, and the kids that have the saggy pants versus the jocks versus the kids in band and orchestra. Those distinctions are very, very clear, and it's like the twain do not meet. They clearly, and then you have the special ed kids, which when I was in school, there was not that distinction. And sad to say, some people mistreat, especially some of the autistic kids and that kind of thing. I've had to deal with that as an administrator, and it's really disheartening. But again, I always say my biggest issue is with 10% of the students, 10% of the teachers, 10% of the parents, because most of the kids are fine. But those lines are really clear, and the kids do not step over them.
Wow, Gene, you've shared some great perspective. You've had quite a varied experience in this regard. I'm just curious to know, as you said, you're an administrator now in a public high school, and you said these lines are really strong and very, very clearly, defined. Is that something that is of concern to administration and faculty? Do you try and eliminate that, or is that just a part of high school life today? Kids are going to be like that, and there's nothing you can do about it.
For the most part, even though the lines are real clear, they're not necessarily. They're, like I said, 10% of the students might mistreat other students, might make fun of other kids, might be the ones who land in my office type of thing. The rest of the kids, they just kind of stay with their group and really don't associate with the other groups. That's what I noticed. The other group I didn't say is because I work in urban settings a lot. There's those cultural groups. The kids that are. When I was in school, I could not speak English when I started school because my parents were from Europe. And you got in and you learned by what they called immersion. You just got into the school and you had to speak English in order to survive. Now, because there's ESL classes and things like that, the kids from different cultures stay together and they speak their own language. So they're isolated from the rest of the kids. And I find that a real concern and try to do things to break those walls. And that's where, and then I also find within a culture, we don't have like black against white. It's more, one nationality against the other nationality. It's usually within the nationalities that there are issues. At least that's been my experience.
Jean, I've got another, just a question. When you were describing the different types of categories of kids, it sounds like it's hard for them to break out of that if they wanted to switch into a different group. And to me, that it's almost like a gang mentality. And this is where I've never resonated with it. And I'm just wondering, as an administrator, is there anything, from what you could do from your perspective, or what we can do as community members, parents, grandparents? What can we do to not have those kinds of groups that I just think I don't know. I just don't think they're helpful for a child's development. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, I don't believe they're helpful. I think it isolates. When I was growing up, we were a melting pot. So we were all different nationalities. I grew up in a neighborhood that was very culturally mixed. We had Germans, Italians, Hispanics, Oriental. I mean, it didn't matter. But the deal was that we're all part of the U.S. Now the distinction is much different. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm Cuban. I'm African American. I'm Chinese. I'm Vietnamese. I'm Korean. I'm, you don't have so much Western Europe, but a lot of Eastern Europe kind of things. But I think it's really important that we try to use programs that really pull from all those. So, like in one school I was in, we tried to establish a leadership team, and we pulled kids from not just the culturally different, but academically different as well, and some of the mentalities. So even behaviorally different. So we pulled kids that had some discipline issues. We pulled because you know what, some of these students really are leaders. They're just kind of leading in the wrong way, and try to get them to work together and have them originate programs that would bring kids together. So like one of the things that they suggested is they had what they called open lunch, and a couple times a month it would be open lunch, open table, which we put tables together and kids could sit at any table. Now, some kids chose to sit with their friends, but we really tried to encourage kids to meet each other, because when you don't know each other, then you have preconceived notions. And I can give you an example of that. I had gone to Catholic schools and Catholic college, went to and had taught initially in Catholic schools and Catholic high school. But when I went into one high school in a large urban city, and it was a Catholic high school. It was very academic. And there were kids there that, like, there was a student with, they colored their hair and things like that. And in the past, I would have had this preconceived notion that student might be problematic. I was real impressed to find over time that was not the case. And I had to break out of my preconception, which was something I kind of, grew up with. And that's one of the things that's been a real benefit to me is, having gone to Catholic schools, your perception is that well, I still believe Catholic schools are your better schools. However, kids do learn in public schools. There are some excellent teachers and wonderful students. And you have I've been in Catholic schools, and you have problems both with teachers and students. So it's those lines are not quite as clear. But I think it's really important to give the kids some of those roles, to help the kids see it and talk about it and come up with ways. If you impose that as an administration on kids, I don't think they're as open to it. Even as a teacher, I can remember one principal saying to me, I had a situation where students had misbehaved, and the teacher said, and a principal said to me, if you can get them to see the problem and them to come up with a solution, they're going to be much more cooperative. And I have found over the years, I've been in education over 30 years, that if something happens, even when I'm disciplining a student, I'll say to them, I need to think about this, you think about this, and you tell me what you think it'll be. They come up with a consequence far beyond what you would ever conceive. So I think helping kids to come up with programs or ways to integrate and work together on different things is a better way to break those lines.
Yeah, Gene, from what you were just saying and what I'm taking away from that is, and this touches upon what we said earlier about just the dignity and the worth of every student. Within each boy and girl is greatness, really, and sometimes, they view things in sort of a, what do I want to say, it's authority against us, but if the administration and the teachers, Debbie, and the authorities, quote unquote, bring them in like Gene is talking about, I think it just really it knocks down a lot of those walls. And like she said, everyone's got a little bit of leadership in them. They're just sometimes leading in the wrong direction.
Yep. Gene, I loved your call. Thank you so much for your take on this, and thank you for the work that you do in education. We really appreciate it. You're a beautiful soul, and thank you so much for taking the time today and helping us shape this discussion. We need that, and this is good. We're talking about high school classes today, those cliques. Did you identify with one in high school, or maybe even in grammar school, because it starts earlier now? I mean, when we were growing up, it was high school. We felt like we were the big shots on campus, but now it's even in middle school. So we want to hear from you. 1-800-585-9396. Gene was gracious enough to free up that line, so you can jump right in. 1-800-585-9396.
Okay, we've got that immovable break coming up here in about 1 minute. So, Rebecca, you're going to be right after that. And RJ, we'll get to you in short order. And Joe in Cleveland, don't go away. Joe, also listening on the Rock Radio. We will get to all of you and the others. And as Debbie said, we had that line open that Gene was on. 1-800-585-9396. Just think back a little bit. Maybe it's been a while. It's been, Debbie, I was talking yesterday. I guest hosted Catholic Answers Live, which I'm going to do again today.
Yes, I saw you. Yeah.
And, the fact that it's 2018, it just struck me that in 2019, it's going to be 40 years since I graduated from high school.
You better not tell anybody that.
I know.
You sound really old.
So, but still, these memories are just so vivid of the groups that we all belonged to and how we treated each other. And was that right? Was it good? Do we maybe feel like we shouldn't have done it now? Like I said, I look back sometimes now and I say, man, wow.
Do you feel guilty?
I just, probably acted in certain ways that maybe I hopefully wouldn't now. But anyway, 800-585-9396. More of your calls straight ahead.
We know you like listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio, but have you thought about bringing them to your next event? No matter what type of event you're hosting, parish mission, conference, or retreat, trust Jerry and Debbie to make it come alive. Begin the process today of taking your presentation to the next level of success. For information on booking Jerry and Debbie, visit take2show.com, click on the J&D logo.
Money talks, but let's hope those behind the latest technology listen to their investors' concerns about phone usage and young people. Hi, I'm Teresa Tomeo, host of Catholic Connection, with another Media Minute here on EWTN. Two big investors want Apple to do more to curb what they call iPhone addiction among kids. An open letter from California State Teachers Retirement System and the New York-based Jana Partners, LLC, expressing growing concerns about how devices and social media are affecting young people. The letter is citing studies and surveys on how heavy use of smartphones and social media negatively affect children's mental and physical health. One remedy the investors would like to see: enhanced mobile device software so parents have more options for protecting their kids' health. I'm Teresa Tomeo with another Media Minute here on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
I just want to share that 5 years ago, my lovely warrior princess and saint of a wife and I decided to adopt a little girl through foster care. She is the perfect roundout of our family of 3 boys and her. Yes, there are challenges. Very grateful today for all the blessings that he has shown our family.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Oh, go ahead.
We just wanted to, real quickly, Rebecca, we're going to get to you, but for everyone listening, the March for Life is coming up this weekend, and it's the big gathering, national gathering. I'm sure people come from all over the world to be in Washington, D.C. to march in defense of and respect of and honor of the sanctity of human life at every stage. And EWTN has got just massive coverage. Okay, it's going to start tomorrow afternoon at 5:30 Eastern Time on EWTN TV and EWTN Radio Classics. And Debbie, even on Friday, we will not have a show because of the March for Life coverage. So folks, just keep in mind, your friend for March for Life information and coverage is EWTN Radio and Television.
A lot of my friends traveled from Phoenix to Washington for the March for Life. We're so glad about that. So safe traveling to all of you. You know who you are. Also, I just wanted to say real quickly to the Take Two family, because we believe in the power of prayer. We're talking about high school. Would you, wonderful family members, keep this beautiful soul in your prayers? It was a high school classmate of mine. A couple days ago, he took his own life. And I'll leave his name out of it to protect his family. But he apparently was suffering from depression for many years, had a football injury, and I don't know if that contributed to it. But he did take his own life a few days ago. And I just wanted to ask you if you would ask God to please, have mercy on him, because he was, we are all talking about him, fellow classmates of mine, and we were all saying he never did an unkind thing or never said an unkind word to anybody, was the nicest human being. And my heart breaks for him, his family, his friends. And so God knows who he is. We don't have to say his name, but I just wanted to share that because we're talking about high school. So it made me think of him. So if you could pray, I would really appreciate it. Okay, Rebecca has been waiting so patiently in New Orleans, Louisiana, listening on the Almighty 690. Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, good morning. Well, it's morning down here. I don't know if it is up there, but...
It is for us as well, Rebecca.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to call in when I heard you talking about your high school experience. Tell us about it. So I couldn't resist. I had to call. My high school experience was miserable. I'm fine now, but it was just hell on earth at the time. I went to an all-girls, so-called Catholic high school, incredibly cliquish, it was just bad. It was just bad. But if it weren't, I have to give a shout out to the wonderful Jesuits who taught me in college, because without them, I don't even think I would be here right now. They were wonderful. But high school was not. I graduated in 1978, and I'm dating myself, and I still, to this day, celebrate every May 14th, the anniversary of my graduation from high school. It was just bad. It was awful. And I feel for anyone out there who had to suffer through the cliques and all this kind of stuff. I don't have children, but if I did, I would definitely homeschool them, because I would not want them to go through anything like that. It's just not healthy. It's not good at all. Not at all.
Well, Rebecca, I'm sorry to hear of your experience, and I was just going to say, I remember when we were in high school, I enjoyed it. I think a lot of kids did, but there was always this real eagerness to get the heck out of there, and I don't know if either you, Rebecca, or Debbie remember that old song we used to sing, spring has sprung, the grass has risen, 30 more days and we're out of prison, or something, and we would count down.
Yeah, that's appropriate.
Yeah, and I mean, we had some. I had classmates who skipped graduation. They hated high school so much, Rebecca, they did not even attend the graduation ceremony. So I can relate to what you're talking about.
Well,
I can relate. Believe me, I can relate.
Rebecca, I can definitely relate in what Jerry's saying, because in my senior year, I was scheduled to be the captain of the all-boys golf team. I was the only female. I was scheduled to be the captain in my senior year. It was a big position, and everybody was so excited. My dad was excited because he was a golf pro. And halfway through my senior year, I went into my principal's office, and I sat down, and I said, I'm out of here. I need to graduate. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, you need a few more classes. I said, I don't care what I have to do. I'm graduating. And he made it happen. And I graduated at the break, after the Christmas break. I graduated early from high school. I never fulfilled the position of the captain. I turned it over to the second guy who was so excited that I was graduating, because he wanted the spot, because he wanted to go on to be a pro. And I did not go back for my graduation. So there you go. I'm a living example.
I don't mean this call to be a complete downer, because it's not. I mean, I'm fine now. I'm happy now, but no, high school, no. It's a miracle I'm here right now. When I went to college, I wore my high school ring. As much as I hated the school, I wore the ring to remind myself, if you live through that, you can live through anything. And I still have that ring, actually. It's in my bathroom drawer. I still have it, to remind myself of that very thing. It's just a shame that schools that are supposed to be Catholic can't get a better handle on that cliquishness and that type of thing. And I know it's hard. I know it is. But anyway, for anyone out there who's miserable in high school right now, it does get better. That's all I want to say.
This too will pass.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca, for sharing your perspective.
Thank you,
because it's real, Rebecca. You were just very real about your own experience, and other people maybe have had quite a different experience. But everyone goes through what they go through, and we're glad that you shared what you did, because it added to the program.
Well, absolutely. And Jerry, I'm not trying to say that we're, all of us are so brilliant that we couldn't stand high school and couldn't wait to get out of it. But I think when you have a certain level of maturity, you see through the cliques very quickly. I saw through it right away in my freshman year, and I didn't like it. And all of my friends can tell you that that's why I floated. I would never identify with a group because I felt like it was holding people back. And I think when you have a little bit of maturity going into high school, you realize this is really not real life, but a lot of people make it real life. And so that's why some of us want to get out quickly.
Well, let's find out what RJ has to say, listening on iHeartRadio in Florida. Hello, RJ. You are up next on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Greetings.
Hi, how are you?
Good, RJ.
My name is RJ, and I'm from Florida. And before I get into my high school experience, I want to tell you, when I was born in 1979, I was 1 pound, 5 ounces, 11 inches.
Wow.
And the doctors didn't think I was going to make it, and they only gave me a 2% chance of survival. They told my mom to pull the plug and just to give up. And my mom said, no, I'm not giving up on my son. I believe God has a plan for RJ's life, so save his life. And 3 weeks after my birth, they said, Mrs. Sandiford, we need to tell you something. Your son is going to be totally blind for the rest of his life. He's never going to be able to see. And so basically, I started school when I was 2. And then I went into kindergarten. And so I was sitting in the classroom, and my mom told me this story a few years before she passed away. And she said she walked into the classroom, and she saw me sitting in a corner playing with toys while the other kids were learning. And she said she walked up to the teacher's desk and looked the teacher in the eye, and these were her exact words. Why the hell aren't you teaching my child? My child has a right to an education. And she looked at my mom and said, well, Mrs. Sandiford, I don't know how to teach a blind child. And so the next year, I had another kindergarten teacher named Mrs. Villain. And she would work with me. She would make me sign my name. She taught me how to sign my name. She would make me go to the bathroom on my own using my cane. She would make me learn with the other kids. And then I got into high school. And now keep in mind, I'm learning Braille this whole time, learning how to read and write Braille. And so basically, I'm in high school, and my 9th grade year, the first week went by without a hitch, okay? That Monday, we started school. That Friday, I come to school, and my Braille teacher says, RJ, the principal wants to see you in her office right now. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, what did I do wrong, So I get to the office, and her name was, my principal's name was Phoebe Rollerson. And she gets up from her desk, shuts the door. She said to me, RJ, you are our first blind student ever in Okeechobee High School. How are you doing? Is anyone mistreating you? Is there anybody, I don't care who it is there anybody mistreating you? Is there anybody trying to trip you up? Is there anything I can do for you? How can I help you? I want you to succeed. And you know what? I'm indebted to Phoebe Rollerson for that because she cared. My first week there, she took the time out of her busy schedule to see how I was doing, and that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, well, RJ, I want to comment on that because this almost, Rebecca's call was such the opposite, and I'm just thanking God, and I know Debbie is as well, that, that dread that you had going into the principal's office, oh, what did I do wrong, turned out to be such a blessing and such a show of love and support for you, and I'm hoping that made for a very, very comfortable and fruitful academic time that you spent in that high school. But Debbie, that's the kind of thing, this is the kind of story that we love to hear about, because this is really the way people should be treated.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But RJ, I just wanted to go back to the very beginning. I just wanted to say, you are such a strong individual. I mean, what a thriver you are. I don't think you said 1 pound, 5 ounces. I don't think I ever remember it being that low of a birth weight that has survived, and you have thrived. And thank God for your strong mom. You come from good genes. I'll tell you what, that's awesome. You have, I love your strength and I love your spirit. So thank you. Thank you for being in this world, making a difference. And thank you for calling in today. Your call is very, very inspiring. So thank you for that.
Yeah, RJ, thanks so much for calling in from Florida. And we're going to go to Joe next in Cleveland. Joe, we give out a Patience Award. It's virtual, but you can feel glad about having received our Patience Award today for waiting on the line there, listening to The Rock. Hi, Joe. Welcome to Take Two.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
I'm with you, Debbie. I was the independent one in high school, and I graduated from high school about 15 years ago. And yes, in addition to the cliques, I went to a Catholic high school in St. Louis, so in addition to the cliques, you also were judged based on the part of town you came in, because being a Catholic high school, it wasn't a neighborhood school. People from all over the county came here. So there was that dynamic as well. So being somewhat of an independent, I found people to hang out with, and I didn't have any problems with friends. But the one thing I noticed in my high school experience, the one thing that brought us together was our Catholic faith. And I remember we went on this dynamic retreat in high school, and it was not mandatory back then. You chose to go on this retreat. So many of us from all over the St. Louis area, from different backgrounds, we went on this retreat. And by the end of it, I noticed that there were people changed overnight, and it was incredible to see. And what really startled me was some of these guys, when we went back to school, some of these guys who never talked to me, I found them suddenly talking to me, or even just saying hi in the parking lot or in the hallway. And that's something positive I took out of my high school experience.
Well, Joe, see, you and I would have gotten along really well in high school, because I just think there's a certain freedom in being a person that just doesn't identify with groups and, floating around, because you do get to kind of encounter people on how, what the experience is based on that personal situation, rather than where they came from or the group they're aligned with or whatever. And so that allows people to really be the true individual, unique, special person that God created them to be. When they're in this group, there's this group mentality, and you don't really get to know another person. You said about going on the retreat and stuff. Here's the thing. We say this all the time. You only know a person as much as they know God. And so in order to do that, you have to have that soul-to-soul encounter. And I think you touched on something, Joe, that I think is worthy of saying, that when we have these groups, how do you know how much they know God? How are they identified? They're identified by that label, and that's it. So it's very shallow to me, and that's why I never really could resonate with it, Joe. But it sounds like you have developed some really good relationships with people you had journeyed with in school, and that's really, really helpful. What do you think? I mean, did I tap into that correctly, or was I reading it the wrong way?
No, I mean, you got it there. And when you're talking about a retreat setting, you're outside of school and you're spending a lot of time with these guys on a smaller setting. It's an opportunity for people to actually discover who they really are, and get to know them.
Yep.
But also too, when you're on a retreat, you're inviting God to be a part of that week as well. And I mean, not only did people change, but I think people became more in tune with their Catholic faith as well. So that was a really fascinating experience for me. Something that I mean, not only was it fruitful for me and my Catholic faith, but it was amazing watching all these young men I went to school with for 4 years. A lot of these guys changed overnight, and it was incredible to see.
Well, that's what retreats can do, Joe, even in the formative years of, middle school and high school. But as adults, that's why we recommend twice a year going on retreats. That's why we're doing the Stand Tall retreat, because people, we are to evolve. We're to grow. We're to learn. We're to expand. As our relationship with God grows, we grow as human beings. And it's really quite interesting. So you are really uncovering a lot here, Joe, and it really helps us to weave this into our spirituality. And so I'm so grateful that you took the time to call in, and I really appreciate it. And I'm glad I wasn't the only one who didn't identify with a group. So I'm definitely glad you affirmed me in that. What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, thanks, Joe, for the call. Great take on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we hope that you'll keep listening on The Rock there and call us again anytime there's a discussion going on that you have something to weigh in on with. Jen, we're going to get to you in Holyoke, Massachusetts, but I want to mention right before we get to Jen that EWTN Religious Catalog is always coming out with new resources, EWTN Publishing as well. This is really cool. EWTN has developed its mission and its ministry over the years, starting with, of course, the TV network and radio and online and now News Nightly, and it's got Catholic News Agency and the National Catholic Register, and recently they added publishing. So EWTN really is your go-to source for the good resources that are going to help you grow in your faith life. And of course, the late beloved Mother Angelica, she wrote and said and did so many things that are now archived and are being compiled in things like books. And one of the latest is it's titled Mother Angelica on God, His Home, and His Angels from EWTN Publishing. And what it is, in essence, it's a collection of 5 mini books authored by Mother Angelica. Get this, she wrote them while in adoration of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament. So you need to check this out. It's Mother Angelica on God, His Home, and His Angels, available at EWTNRC.com.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, Jen gets to share the Virtual Patience Award because I'm looking at the time she's been holding. Okay, Jen, you're going to get to share the Virtual Patience Award. Thank you so much for waiting, and you're listening on the EWTN app. Hi, Jen. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, and thank you so much for the award. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
I kind of have a hodgepodge of experiences. I kind of have Rebecca's experience in elementary school, and I kind of have the independence kind of experience sort of in high school. And when I was in kindergarten, I was for whatever reason, I was kind of like a bully kind of kid. I just remember making fun of a couple kids. I don't know why, because I didn't understand them, I think. And not that that's any excuse, but judgmental. And then when I was in halfway through first grade, we moved within the same town school system, but to a different school. And so, I had a very different experience where I was not accepted. And then we moved again another 6 months later, and it got worse. I was once again not accepted. And let's just say the whole judgmental thing, went away. But it was a really hard time until I graduated elementary school in 5th grade. And I remember could not wipe the smile off my face, sitting on that stage singing a song about, oh, it's so sad to leave the school behind. I'm like, yes. And, but it was just it was elementary school. There were very few kids that accepted me, and there were, I think there were cliques then too, but it was just really, just an awful time. I would cry at night so often, but it ended up setting up for me, because I didn't really have relationships with other people around me except for a select few individuals that I would maybe talk to at the bus stop, but I would just kind of like sit on the school bus alone and just kind of, but it gave me some space and some time with God, and I didn't even realize, but I think I was praying, I know I was, and just kind of like, I would just kind of like, reflect on my day and what was, like I would think about things like what was morally right and morally wrong, and things that I saw, or maybe things that we were learning in school or whatever. And it helped me to filter, to have a habit of filtering my education, both, the formal education and also, especially, history education, things like that. I didn't commit a whole lot to memory because I didn't trust what we were learning. I went to public schools the whole time, by the way. And by middle school got a little better, but it was still tough. High school got better. That was the best one of the three. But even then, it's not like I had a real set of friends. But by then, it wasn't like I wasn't an outcast by then. I learned how to fit in based upon what to wear and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't really accepted, but yet I was very well respected. And I would socialize with different groups at that point. And I was challenged when I was in high school to come out of my shell. I was helped by, I'll say, some silly boys that they would just they would challenge me to do silly things, and we'd all laugh. We all had fun. Mm-hmm. And I did things like, I said the morning announcements to force myself to get out of my shell. And I danced on the tennis team and all those sort of things. I became more and more comfortable in my own skin. Mm-hmm. And I guess the point is that I became over time comfortable with not necessarily being accepted. And that's very well ingrained into who I am. I don't really care too much what other people think now. Now I'm 33 years old, and I just, ever since high school or so, I just haven't really cared too much what other people think, which has been a great grace,
I thought you sounded young, Jen. I wasn't going to ask, but you just, you are. So you've had a pretty fresh, Deb, she's had a pretty fresh, recent experience of all this.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm 33.
Yeah.
33, yeah, right.
It's fresh for us because
it's fresh for us because
we're
much
old enough
older to be your parents.
Your parents. Yeah. But Jen, interesting. I love what you said about it when you were after fifth grade. You started to develop your own spirituality, and I think that is really interesting because my graduate degree is in adolescent spirituality, and we know that vocations come out of that age group, and so here you were developing your relationship with God more, which is very, very powerful, and then this idea of that being accepted, but you were respected. That's really where we kind of all should be, because we really, as Catholic Christians, really shouldn't want to be totally accepted by this world, right? Because our main goal is eternity. And so you learned that through the steps that you took through junior high and high school. And so really, when you look at it, is anybody really accepted? No, because at any time people can turn their back on you. That's the way the world is in nowadays. But Jen, I think it's very, very I think encouraging to hear your story, because you've grown, you've spiritually matured, and you've gotten to a place where you're comfortable in your own skin and your spirituality. I love that, Jen. More power to you. I think you're a strong gal, and I just love it. I wish I was 30 again. I can pretend though, Jerry. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you, Jen. Carol, Karen, and the other two that Matt is working on screening right now. We apologize. You hear the music. Tomorrow we're going to talk about does your past, does our past sometimes get in the way of our future in terms of becoming the best version of ourselves?
Yeah, I always call it the paralyzing past, Jerry, because it tends to keep us stuck. And we're going to talk about that tomorrow on Take 2. But again, great participation today. What a great show. We're so glad to be back live with you. So until tomorrow, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.